Right, good afternoon everybody. This is a project breakdown of What's My Age Again by the function band that I'm in. Thanks for your time. We're going to go through the tracks systematically and we're going to take a little look at what's going on and yeah, so let's start. This is just me, so we can ignore that. I guess we'll start with vocals, possibly. Yeah, let's do vocals first. So this is TLM 103, and if you haven't seen my other video, highly recommend watching. The TLM 103 is great for the high-end kind of stuff, for the more aggressive, but it can also be used for softer stuff. It's just a very high-end, very boomy mic with lots of that air to it, lots of the brilliance up in the 12-ish kilohertz region. So there are 4 different vocal tracks, or 3. Essentially what's going on here is there's different mixes for the verses and chorus, because there's different stuff going on in each of the verses and chorus. In the first verse, there is only bass and clean guitar, so keep that in mind. For the second verse, there is high gain, distorted, palm muted guitars, bass, drums, and some background stuff. So as you can imagine, needs a separate mix. And for the chorus, there's everything all at once. So that's essentially why this was done in 3 different mixes. It was hard to get the levels right. I think I need to address first off that the gain staging on this project went awfully wrong, and I had to take quite a lot off of the master to get these channels to essentially not be in the red. But we'll just ignore that. So yes, vocals, TLM 103, we've got a little bit of tuning there, quite a lot of compression, fast as attack and release to get through the all of those syllables being the same volume, essentially, same signal sound. We've got this compressor, which is to add a little bit of character, a little bit of distortion. We've got this on 12 kilohertz on really broad, just a little boost up there. We've got more compression. We have a little boost up in the highs, and then a de-esser, and that's basically the same. Yeah, that's the same throughout all of it. Just little tweaks to volume, and yeah, that's it. This is reverb, vocal reverb. These are my harmonies that I did. Compression, gating, more compression, lots of compression. So yeah, then we've got the crowd vocals here, which are all just being compressed really heavily to get them all to the same volume, so that when I put them into this one fader, they're all coming at the same volume, so I can control them with one mixer knob instead of 5, which is a pain. Then we're trying to replicate what I did on these vocal channels so that they sound like it's all the same kind of thing. Floor tom, little gate on the floor tom and the high tom. This is D6 and D4. All the toms, all the microphones are the same. It was in the same session, same day, so yeah, it's going to be similar. Then here we've got a big boost on the toms on the bus channel this time instead of individually. So yeah. Oh, on the crowd we all stood round. We put the mic in the center of the room. We stood around and we rotated round. It's a 4-1-4, so it gets a big room sound. With the crowd vocals. This is cymbals, isolated cymbal mics, which I believe is 251, AKG 251. And we've just got some high end being taken off there because the hi-hat was a bit fizzy. This is the snare bus. We'll come back to that. Don't need that if it's not being used. Gate on the snare. Oh, this is the actual snare, no samples. This time, apart from the room samples. We're adding a bit of crack with a dynamic EQ this time, a bit of high end, and also a bit of high end being taken off. We'll ignore that. We're adding that snap. 3 milliseconds is really fast, but because of the way it's been saturated later on down the line, that 3 milliseconds ends up with a nice huge transient. Plus it needs it because it's not a sample, so once you've gated it, you lose a bit of attack. even with the look ahead. We're adding more dynamic EQ to add the crackback, and then here we've got our first lot of saturation. This is my favorite saturator to use on snare drum because it removes a lot of the transient that you don't want and keeps the transient that you do want, which is the best way that I can explain that. It removes a lot of the unwanted snap and attack, and also removes some highs which don't sound great. And then we're boosting 30 dBs. Ignore that once again. Gain staging went very wrong. Snare bus here, we've got attack, the 3 millisecond attack. Once again, very fast, loud and hard. So very snappy compressor there, and we're adding some high end. This is the room channel on the snare, which is essentially just crocheting the room into oblivion. We're automating it volume so that it gets louder in the chorus. This is the room mic on the snare, that is the RE88 by AEA, and we're moving shit tons of high end because that, for whatever reason, that mic in that room is really high end heavy. Compressor on the overhead, a little bit longer with the transient on this one with the attack, and we've got on the virtual tape machines here, we're slamming the overhead, the M50, because it sounds sick when you put something with a really long transient and really slammed into a saturator with the close mic, a room with a close mic. It sounds great. Removing a bit of ring up at the top and making it a little bit softer with a low number on the dB per octave there. This is on the snare O. This is a 251, the Telefunken, 11 grand mic. Yep, very cool. Loud and soft, so we're getting a soft knee and we're getting that big smack that we can get. At 10 milliseconds we're looking at fairly snappy and a fast release, and once again slamming it into this because it gets that big room sound. For the kick drum we've got a 91. This is a sample, this kick is, because there's some doubles which is really hard to perform live that I wanted to do. And then we've got some EQ here at 4K, removing some of that ugly 8K plus, quite heavily saturated kick here. Once again, boosting tons of high end, removing some low end, or adding some punch and more EQ shaping at different points. Multiband saturation. I'm removing some of the longevity, the sustain in the low end here, and then leaving the sustain on that. I'm using variations of warm tube and clean tube, or clean tape even. So sorry. Warm tape and warm tube, different saturators or different characters of saturators. Tape typically is odd order harmonics, which sounds more rounded and is good for transients and removing transients. And then tube saturation, I find, adds a little bit of smack to the top end. So yeah, and then we're adding some high end, some low end, and removing some of that upper hiss. And then we've got 30 millisecond attack here to let lots of the transient through. We want that large click, but then we're pulling it back quite heavily. I don't think it's doing much. We've got a ratio of 4, probably about 4 or 5 dBs, and then another kick mic. Oh, that's a kick bus, sorry, so all of this is going to the kick bus. And that's the drums. Guitars, we're using Fortin NTS with the overdrive to get those mids nice and big in the amp. We're removing some of this because there was a bit of clanking there. This is the EQ for the guitars. Trying to make this bigger so we can all see it. Nice. Adding lots of mids. This is a very scooped amp. Removing some resonance there, some low mid mod, if you will. Don't like that word, but you know. Removing the hiss there, up in the top. And overall adding some brightness and some low end. The clean tone, removing some lows, compressing quite heavily, very, very low gain, quite bright on the Polini with the lovely reverb, which I sometimes just use on vocals as well. I literally use the guitar plugin on vocals sometimes just for the reverb because I love it that much. Removing the high end here. What you'll notice is this, for whatever reason, this plugin has like a self noise thing. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but yeah. And we're adding some top end here as well. And then we've got our bass channel finally. I believe that is everything. Just the bass left, yeah. Boosting into the amp some lows to get it nice and deep. We're using Beta 52A and 57. Two very different microphones, but you know, it blends together well. Fast attack and release on a compressor, and some big old EQ to really shape the tone. And that is what my age again. But thanks for your time. I believe that's all here. Yes, that's it. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your time.